pretty bad. So I'm trying to, I'm like, hey, do you guys want to come to a rider training school with me? So
They are so lucky to have you with them, so you can easily teach anyone. Anytime they want to learn, they just jump on the bike and go and ride with you.
yeah, it was good. I was actually the student today, so it was a purely road riding school. So it's good to yeah, good to be the student sometimes too.
Chris, I'm very curious. What are they riding?
My mum's riding a 390 Duke.
Mm-hmm.
ATM, and my dad's riding it. He used to ride an 1190, but he's recently sold it, and he's just bought a Suzuki V-Strom 650. So we give him a hard time, but it's a lot lower. It's a lot more gentle for a grandfather, but he loves it.
Okay.
He keeps wanting me to ride it though, and it's so boring.
Chris, I was curious. Is there any brand that you didn't try or ride?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many bike manufacturers out there now. It's almost hard to keep up with all of them. But luckily, we're doing
especially to the adventure bikes.
No, I get to try most of them because when we do the riding schools, I always end up jumping on different people's bikes, and yeah, and it's good as well. You know, with some of the adventure bikes, they're quite different to ride. For example, like the big BMWs, some of the techniques are a bit different. So it's good to make sure that I'm not teaching people too specifically what works for me in my KTM world. It's good to get the feelings of all these different bikes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's nice. We will wait a few minutes until 9 and 10 to see who's going to log in, and
Sure.
yeah, until then we can chat a little bit. So guys, you can use this opportunity to unmute. I see a lot of people that are muted at the moment.
And how are things in Romania?
No, here heavy snow, at least in the south side of Romania. Heavy snow, -5, -7 degrees Celsius. Not horrible. We are used to much lower, but
Yeah.
no, it's not that bad.
Okay. And the COVID situation is not.
It's a little bit stable. We used to have rougher times. Now it's not. We are not in a lockdown, but there are some restrictions related to free circulation during the night, but not more than this.
Okay, that's good.
It seems to improve. The vaccination campaign started with the old people now, with the risk category of people. It seems to go into a, let's say, normal situation.
Oh, excellent. That's good.
And how is in New Zealand? You're not in lockdown, right?
No, so New Zealand's quite a unique situation. We have zero COVID in our country. But the downside with that is as a country, we really want to protect that. So our border is closed.
Oh, okay.
So you're living there. You're like in a paradise, because this is how it's New Zealand. You're like in a paradise. You can go to restaurants, you can go to parties, you can do whatever you want, but you cannot get out of the country, and nobody can't get in, right?
Well, you can go, you just can't come back.
Okay.
No, I shouldn't say you can, but to come back, you have to. There's a minimum of 2-week quarantine in a quarantine isolation facility, which costs about $3,000, and there's many restricted places to it. So yeah, we're trapped in paradise is a good way to describe it.
Okay.
Chris, are you watching the Dakar race?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think about the latest situation unfolding there?
It looked like a tough race. This year, I sat there and I thought I never thought I wanted to be there. It looks like they've made the navigation really tough, and I think in some ways that's taken away from the racing. It's one thing when you use the navigation to slow the competitors down to make it safer, that sort of thing. But when the terrain's really open, you're going really fast, and the navigation's really tough, it's not that much fun.
Yeah.
And think that's
you went to Dakar, but Chris, I saw that you went to Dakar to Red Bull Romaniacs. You won the title, and to GS Trophy, as well as the Roof of Africa. What exactly is Roof of Africa?
so the Roof of Africa is a really cool race. It's been going since the 1970s, I think. And it started off as like a Baja sort of race across the country of Lesotho.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the map of South Africa, there's a little square in the middle of it, and that's Lesotho.
Yeah.
It's one of the very few countries in the world completely surrounded by one other country, and it's a very poor country, but it has amazing mountains, and it's probably the first ever hard enduro race. So it's a really big, important like sporting event for South Africa. It's a big event for them, and yeah, I was fortunate enough to win it 3 years in a row.
Wow.
So,
Very
yeah,
nice.
Surprise anyway. So.
yeah. So that was the first international hard enduro race I ever won, and that race definitely changed my life. And you know, South Africa and Lesotho is a really important part of the world for me. I lived there for 2 years. Just fell in love with the place.
Very
I always
nice.
think the best places in the world to ride are Romania, South Africa, and Canada.
Since you mentioned it, Chris, except the Romaniacs, did you have the chance to ride in our mountains more than Sibiu?
Not a heck of a lot, no. I did another race called the King of the Hill many years ago. It wasn't very good, but no. We rode some bikes from Sibiu across the mountains to Bucharest, and that's pretty much been it. Unfortunately, in all the times that I've been to Romania, and I've been there, I think I was trying to count 11 times. I've always just, I've never had any money, so it's, you can barely just afford to do the race. So you fly in, do the race, get home, get back to work, sort of thing. So I haven't really had the chance to explore it the way that I should have done.
Yeah, next time you're here, don't worry about the money. Just send the word, man. Come on. I think there are 100 million people coming to help you.
Yeah, Romania is a cool place. I'd love to explore it on an adventure bike. It must be amazing.
Yes, and you are always welcome, Chris. You and Monica and Zoe as well. I think they will love it too, because it's so different from New Zealand. It's really, really different. You know that.
Yeah. It's a beautiful place for sure. And a good story about Romania. The last time I went to Romaniacs, Monica and my daughter Zoe came as well.
Oh.
And Zoe was asleep when we arrived in Romania, and she asleep in the taxi all the way to the motel, or to the pension where we were staying. We woke up in the morning, and said, "Zoe, that's it. We're here. We're in Romania." No, this is not Romania. No, Daddy, we are not in Romania. This is not Romania. And it wasn't until that we took her into Sibiu and showed her where they were building the prologue track for Romania. She's like, "That's it. We're in Romania."
Oh God, I wished we could meet earlier, but it's never too late. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the famous "Say No to Slow" video serial. A lot of people have bought the serial, and they already watch it, and they say that it's so simple to understand and so nice. My colleague Ionuț already put the link in the chat, so you can copy the link in the chat. Do we go to Dakar after we watch this serial, Chris?
No, you don't. It's more so that the history behind doing this. I'm in the really fortunate position of people asking me all the time, like, "Hey, come to Romania. Hey, come to all these amazing places around the world." And I say yes to as much as I can, but obviously I end up having to say no to a lot of it because it just doesn't work. I live on the other side of the planet, and I like my family, and I don't want to wave goodbye to them for the whole year. So we wanted to come up with a way of helping people out, being able to help them with their riding, assist them with their riding without me physically having to go there and not having to live my entire life in an airplane. And so we've been building up this series, the footage for a long time. It's taken us a long time to do it. And then as COVID hit New Zealand and we went into lockdown, we went into a complete panic. So my whole plan for making a living and supporting my family involves meeting large groups of people, traveling, all that sort of stuff. That was just completely wiped out. So that was the big motivator. I'm like, oh my God, like, how am I going to pay my mortgage? What the hell am I going to do? Okay, let's get the series going. And so that was the final motivation to try and push this thing out. And thankfully it went well. And it went from like, it saved my ass last year, basically.
It's really good. It's really good, and we have great feedback from people who have already seen it. So
so we've just last week started filming the next series.
oh, wonderful!
Yeah,
the next
it'll
series,
take us a while.
how is it going to be?
It's going to be focused around the enduro bikes, around the little bikes.
Mm-hmm.
So that the plan is we've done the adventure one, we'll do the enduro one, and then we'll do a follow-up, a second series of the adventure one as well. Yeah, but it all takes a while. It takes us weeks and weeks and weeks to film it.
Well, we're looking forward to see the new serial as well.
I'm really stoked at how successful it's been. Like the feedback we get from people has just been so cool. It's been well and above what we ever thought it might be. So yeah, both in terms of the response we've got from people and in sales as well, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. I think that we can start the meeting because it's already a little bit late. We don't want to keep you so much, Chris. I know you want to get back to your family. So we can start the discussions, and because we have ladies here, yeah, ladies first. So Ramona, please take the initiative, and you can start the questions to Chris.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Chris, for being with us today. I watched part of your series because it's like a school online, which I'm attending whenever I got the chance. So I really enjoyed the online course that it was recommended to me by a friend who is more experienced than I am. So I will start apologizing to those who have more experience than me. Maybe my questions will seem dumb to you, but I have two fears: river crossing and sand riding. I've been to Morocco, and it didn't go that well on the sand with my BMW. I have a GS 700. So my first question to you would be: do you have any advice on how to handle that bike on sand, and whether is recommended at all to use front brake on sand?
Chris, did you?
He got scared.
So you don't have a KTM?
He was in the wrong meeting.
Chris, are you? I think he's disconnected, Chris.
Yeah.
Okay, so I
So
think you did a great job on in Morocco, Ramona. Come on,
Yes,
you're being modest. Being in Morocco with your bike, it's really good. Maybe you can tell us how you got your bike there.
I sent it there. I didn't rode from Romania to Morocco. It was sent there in south of Spain, and then afterwards we used the ferry to go to Morocco, do our tour, and then getting back the bikes in Spain, and then coming back to Romania.
And your experience as an adventure rider, did you go there just directly from the street, or you did a little bit of training?
I only attended the training in Zărnești, which Matei is doing. Mm-hmm. So I was my experience was like 3,000 kilometers ever. And then
Really? 3,000 kilometers? And you went to Morocco after the training with Chris,
Yes.
with Matei?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Hear me?
you're here. Wonderful. We can
Okay,
hear you. So, Ramona,
literally.
maybe you could change the bike and ask the same questions. I'm joking.
Yeah. Sorry.
Let's say I have a KTM, which looks like a BMW 700, right? And acts like it. So
A grey KTM. I got it.
yes, a great KTM. My bike is not that much of an enduro bike or an adventure bike. It behaves more like a street bike on sand, at least. So on sand, when you're riding on sand, an adventure bike, can you use the front brake at all, or it's something you don't do ever?
I would never ever say to people, don't use your front brake, because, you know, if a car, camel, whatever it is, steps out in front of you, you need to use your front brake. But there is definitely some truth in that. You need to be way more subtle, way more gentle with your front brake inputs than you ever would be in any other situation. Often when the sand is soft, even just shutting the throttle is more than enough to scrub off the speed.
Mm-hmm.
The real harsh thing with sand, especially on big adventure bikes, is the more aggressive you are, the faster you go, the easier it is. And
that's what I heard.
yeah, and it's a whole like chicken and the egg sort of thing. Like, you know, I mean, you can see it in the Dakar. Like the guys will come into a refuel. They're going flat out across the desert. The bike's going dead straight. They're looking at the road book. They're not even worrying about it. They slow down for the refuel. The bike starts to wiggle and mess around, and it's really hard for them to get up and going again. Generally, most bikes about 40 kilometers an hour. That's when they start to kind of rise up out of the sand and start to kind of plane across the top more, and you're not pushing through that sand. So it's not about having to go absolutely full speed everywhere, but it's about just trying to hold that ground speed up enough that you're not falling down into the sand and wallowing around in it. And a good way to think about it is think of it like a boat. So when the boat's going too slow, it's pushing all the water in front of it, and it's having to lots of corrections. The engine's working really hard. You put your foot on the gas, the boat pops up out of the water, off she goes. And it's very similar with riding the bikes in that soft conditions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. My second question regards water crossing. What do's and don'ts? Do's and don'ts.
So that was definitely, I should say, that's definitely something we missed out from the adventure series. That's something we should have had in that we didn't. But it'll come in the next one, I promise you. Okay. The key things I think is I always say to guys, don't sacrifice wet spark plugs for wet feet. So if you're not sure, especially if you're out exploring, adventuring by yourself, park your bike up, walk into the water, suss it all out, figure it out. The only goal in adventure riding is not drowning your bike in the river. Everything else is a bonus from there. So take the time to suss it out, figure it out, and make a good, safe decision to start off with. Especially on a big bike, if you're by yourself, it's a really, really dangerous situation, or it can potentially be. So it needs to be really treated with respect. Whenever I go into the water, I have my thumb on the kill switch ready to go. So if my bike falls into the water with the engine off, most modern adventure bikes now, the airboxes are so well designed, you can stand the thing up, it'll self-drain, give it a second, you start the bike up, no problem. If you go into that water with the engine running, it's likely to suck the water into the engine, big engine damage potential. You know, you can be there for hours at a good end, and potentially you can destroy your engine, sort of thing. So the mistake a lot of guys will make is they'll go into the deep water and go, oh no, I've got to keep the engine running. Lots of RPM, bikes, bad things happen. So I go the other way. Like if I think there's going to be any danger, if I start to lose my balance, just switch that engine off as quickly as you can. Around river crossings, you know, crossing rivers, you always want to be trying to use the flow of the water to help you. Mm-hmm. So imagine if the water's flowing this way, you would enter the river from up here and aim to exit it down here. So rather than trying to fight against that current, you're giving yourself room to kind of move with the current and cross across the river as an angle. So you're starting upstream and finishing downstream. Yeah. But the big thing I think with them is to treat the river crossings with respect. Don't be a hero. Take your time. Suss it out. Just make sure you make a really good, a whole big trip down the South Island of New Zealand. There'll be multiple river crossings, and I know there's going to be times where we're just going to have to team up, get each bike through one at a time, and just the only goal is just not to cock it up, basically.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Hope that helps.
Ramona, do you have any other questions?
Well, my last question was regarding any trainings in Europe. Are you planning in the future to do something like that in Romania, or in Europe at least?
Yes, yeah, we had a whole bunch of stuff locked in for last year, and then it all got wiped out.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I miss Europe.
Okay.
It's been too long. I will make it as soon as we can. We'll make a plan,
Wonderful.
and it would be great if Romania can be part of that.
That would be wonderful, Chris. We look forward to meet you all. Ramona, if you don't have any other questions,
No more questions.
thank you. And
Thank you.
I think Dragos is the next one on the list. With Dragos, are you here?
Yes. Hello, Chris. Thank
Hi.
you for being with us.
Thank you.
I have some questions, and the first one is related to suspension. You know, a lot of boys, especially, want to play and tweak the suspension.
Mm-hmm.
What I would suggest, maybe in a future video series, is for you to make a video with the relation between the bike's behavior and then suspension setup, because we can never find online. For example, if the bike starts to wobble, where should I go? Should I go to the preload? Should I go to the rebound? What should I do? This is very difficult to understand for some people, for some non-technical people. Not everybody knows how the oil flows, cartridge close, cartridge open, things like this. Do you have any tip for a new rider or for a experienced rider but who never tweaked the suspension on where to mess with first if the bike doesn't behave the proper way? So
it's good to hear this, because in the list of videos that we have for the dirt bike series that we're planning, suspension is number 2. It's second on the list, so we're on to it. But some advice before that. The first thing to do is to go through and record where your bike is to start off with. So count where each adjuster is on the bike to start off with. So, for example, like your fork compression, wind that all the way down, counting the clicks until it's completely bottomed out as hard as it can go. So maybe like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, that's at 12. Write that down on a piece of paper, set it back to where it was. Rebound all the way in, count that, write it down on a piece of paper. Go through every single adjuster of your bike and write that information down. Fold that piece of paper up and put it away somewhere really safe. So if you turn your bike into a complete wheelbarrow, you can just start again. You know where your base settings are, and that takes away all the fear of getting it wrong. You know, you can't get it wrong now. You won't make your bike worse because you know where to start off with. From there, you need to go and find a short trail or a short bit of riding that replicates where you want your bike to behave, and get a good feel of what it's doing. From there, each adjuster at a time, you need to go for really big changes. So the mistake, the two common mistakes people will make is they'll make multiple changes at one time. So they'll go, okay, a couple of clicks compression, a couple of clicks rebound, a couple on the shock, that sort of thing. And it's really hard to get that feeling. You know, even sorry, I'm looking straight into that light. Even a very, very experienced rider will struggle to tell you exactly what's going on. So the first thing you want to do is learn to understand exactly what these adjusters do in terms of riding down the trail. So the first thing I would do, I go, right, what does it feel like if I completely close my fork compression dampening? Okay, it feels like that horrible type of crap. Okay, wind it all completely open, all the way to the minus. Okay, now it feels like that horrible type of crap. So you're going to the full extent of the range. And you do that for every single adjustment on the bike individually, all the way in, all the way out. And all you're really trying to do is learn what that particular adjuster does to the bike and how that makes it respond. Once you understand what those adjustments do, you can go out, ride your trail and go, okay, it kind of feels like maybe this was a bit like what it was when I had nowhere near enough fork rebound. So you try winding in the fork rebound 2 or 3 clicks, and you can start to sort of dial your bike in yourself from there. So this process takes a while. So you've got to come into it with a headspace like, I'm not going for a ride today. All I'm doing is figuring out how these suspension adjusters work. And that's the important first step.
Yeah, because in a ride, the terrain changes so much, especially here in Romania. You can have the soil that is going under your bike, and then you have hard gravel, and then you have rocks, and then you always need to tweak and adjust something to make your bike feel stable.
Yeah. So I could never tell you how to set your bike up for you.
Yeah, that's clear.
But I can tell you how to go and learn how the adjusters work and give you the tools that you need to kind of figure it out for yourself. The other big thing I think to remember with adventure riding is it's always a compromise. It's never going to be perfect everywhere because we have way too much change. Like motocross, you can go, okay, I'm going to spend all practice getting this thing absolutely dialed into this track, but that's not our world. We always have to sacrifice somewhere.
Perfect. Then I would like to ask your personal opinion about tubes or tubeless. I'm so curious. Which one do you prefer?
Tubes.
Tubes. Clear.
Yeah. In a story.
Okay. Then my last question to you is, almost immediately after anybody buys a motorcycle, an adventure motorcycle, starts to add accessories and things on the motorcycle. One of those accessories are the bar risers. The manufacturers cannot. I know it's an old discussion, but some people are 2 meters tall, some people are 165, 170. The manufacturer cannot do the perfect height straight from the factory, so they need something. What is your opinion about this? Should we continue to buy risers to feel a little bit comfortable, or just copy the bike line?
High heels, Dragos, high heels.
So I'm 6'2".
Mm-hmm.
So not crazy tall, but reasonably tall. And I run lower than standard handlebars on all my motorbikes. I'm trying to get the front end lower. So the opposite way to what most people are going. The bar risers are really good. This is just my opinion, right? Okay, and this gets controversial really quickly. The bar risers do one thing really, really well. They make it very comfortable to ride your bike badly.
Yeah, this is incredible. Yeah.
So not everyone wants to hear the story, especially a company like Touratech that makes really good money making bar risers. Sorry, I'm going to try and set the computer somewhere where you guys
don't say something bad about Touratech.
Yeah, just put your fingers in your ears for a second, Maria. So, oh man, is this going to work?
Nah, it's okay.
So, if I'm standing up tall with my hips underneath me to reach my bars, I get a big bend through my back, really hard to see. Need bar risers. Get some bar risers. All that pressure comes off my spine. But now I'm standing almost vertically. I have very little stability. When I hit that soft sand, when I hit that mud, it's really hard for me to control my upper body. If you use your hips and fold through your hips, the need for the bar risers goes away straight away. So as soon as I fold through my hips, I create way more spread through my body. I'm a lot stronger. My head and my shoulders come down, and the stock bar height works. So for me, I like to ride more aggressively. I like the real off-road stuff. So I want more of that. So I run a lower than standard front end to make that even more comfortable. So,
okay.
What
the
about
thing that gets me?
the street riding? Do you need it for the street riding maybe?
That's something I don't understand at all. Like, why would you want your bars higher to ride on the street?
Because you're, I don't know. The position, it's how Drago said.
Yeah,
Okay, it makes sense. What Chris is saying makes sense, but you know, almost everybody I know runs by risers. This is clear.
yeah, it's great. And it creates such a crappy riding position. It keeps me in a living.
Because you know why? Because you cannot, that position, that attack position that you showed to us, it's very hard to maintain for hours and hours of riding. But maybe if you can combine sitting with standing up, then it's okay to not to use bar risers.
Yeah, well, sorry, I'm just trying to find somewhere where that sun's not so beautiful, that's not so punishing. Yeah, and that's another thing that we come up against a lot with doing the riding schools, is for some reason adventure bike riders think it's not okay to sit down, and they think that sitting down is like giving up. Whereas sitting down is a really efficient way of riding your bike. And again, if you go back to Dakar, right, those guys are sitting down heaps. And it's not to be lazy, it's not to try and save energy, it's to go as fast as you can. And when we do our riding schools, we spend equal amount of time working on the seated cornering, seated techniques as we do standing cornering, standing techniques. And it's not about, you know, I prefer to stand up or I prefer to sit down. You have to work both sides of riding out and work out which is appropriate in the terrain and the situation that you're in. And I you know, without trying to, you know, I'm the man sort of thing, but often when we're on these big group rides, there's times where I'm the only guy standing up, and there's times where I'm the only person sitting down as well. That's
yeah, it's clear. Thank you so much for your answers, Maria.
No problem.
Sorry, can I add a question that relates to this body positioning? Sorry to intervene, Maria.
Yeah, please.
Would that work? Okay. So so coming back to your explanation, Chris, hi, it's a real honor to talk to you in person. First of all, I'm Radu. So I'm an intermediate rider in enduro, let's say. And my question relates to exactly your explanation. I'm kind of the same height as you. I'm a 1.85 m. That I think that's 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm kind of struggling to find my perfect body position. Yet I'm doing not crazy Romanian stuff, but I've let's say I've evolved a bit in the last 3 seasons in enduro, and what I find still not comfortable enough to really, you know, kick it is especially the standing position when going really fast, you know. I mean, when I'm accelerating and especially uphill, I kind of find myself, you know, falling back. So I kind of need to use my arms to pull myself in. But then I kind of start losing balance, and I'm starting to be messy on the throttle. On the other hand, when I'm going downhill, really steep downhill, any kind of downhill, I find myself in a very comfortable position. And I have a friend that tries to coach me. Is a very experienced rider, and I don't know, we've been through all kinds of drills, but this is something that I still, you know, don't find the answer to. And I was wondering what it's very difficult because, you know, I mean, for this the coach classes are, but I was just wondering if there's like, I don't know, something that I can try.
Yeah, so for the hill climbing, for the long sustained uphills, it's very, very difficult to stand the whole time. And there's basically no standing position that will allow you to be completely relaxed to your arms on a long climb. So that's why we sit down for it. And it's not just a like giving up, sit down. It's an active, dynamic, working at it, seated position, but you're still holding a lot of your weight through the seat. And if you look at Romaniacs, that sort of stuff, that's a big reason why almost all the pro field will be running the pleated grip gripper seat cover. It's so that we can do more climbing sitting down without sliding off the back of the bike to save our arms for the really ugly stuff. So with the hill climbing, you need to stand if you have to stand. Like if you have to stand, you have to stand. But if you don't. And save that energy. The amount of energy you're going to use trying to maintain a standing position is really high, and that energy in an enduro race would be much better used at a different opportunity later on. It's not an efficient way of getting through the racetrack. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but still, I mean, even if things are not that rough, like if you're bombing, let's imagine like it's a straight line, I mean, not uphill, just very, very.
So, some real key points to the efficiency of that standing position. Really important is the angle of your shins. So between your lower leg, your shins should be pretty much vertical the whole time. As soon as you let your knees come forwards, you're going to find you put a lot more load through your quads, and you're way more likely to collapse forwards, which ends up having to put loads of pressure through your bars and kind of more harder to stabilize your upper body. So it's really crucial that you put a lot of effort into keeping your shins vertical. So imagine if that's your bike, as you're going uphill, your shins will come forwards relative to the bike, but they'll stay straight up and down vertical. In line with the trees is a good way to describe it. As you go downhill, your shins will come back relative to the bike, but they'll stay straight up and down in line with the trees. So shins in line with the tree trunks is a good way to remember it. And that makes a really, really big difference. So when I demonstrate this at the riding schools, we use like a tree log about this big, and I just ride straight into it without doing anything. And if my shins are vertical, the bike just goes straight. I can do it without even holding on to the handlebars, sort of thing. If my knees are forwards, the bike kicks, I collapse forwards, all sorts of bad stuff starts to happen. The way we try and remind the guys is shins straight to stay straight, knees forwards to crash forwards. And also when you put your knees forwards like that, it really, really loads your quads, really, really loads your glutes as well. And a good way to describe that is, if you stand up now and stand with your knees forwards like that, your legs are going to get sore very soon. It's not a good position for a human body to be in for any long period of time.
Radu, what I would like to encourage you to watch the adventure series of Chris. There's a section there called body positioning. For me, it was a lifesaver. I think I watched that video 10-15 times, but it helped a lot. I encourage you to go buy it and watch it.
Is it? Okay, but I was looking on the website, but I will look for it because it's not clear. So no, this is viable. It's not found on. Okay.
He has a lot of sections, and one of them is only for body positioning. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. The same goes for no to slow.
Yeah, I should say it's exactly the same for the enduro bike, the basic standing position, as it is your on the adventure bike. It's riding motorbikes off road. Mm-hmm. There's no real change there. Obviously, there are changes in the technique as we go through the different scenarios, but the standing position is identical.
You can find the link in the chat, Radu. My colleague Ionuț put it in the chat.
Yeah, I'm on the website already, but I don't know how to buy the videos, but I will figure it out after.
I'll show you after the meeting. I'll show you.
We get a lot of that.
I just bought it, like the whole thing.
Okay.
So hang on, nobody buy anything because Monica has a discount code for you guys. I just don't know what it is. So just wait.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
No problem.
Radu, should we? Do you have any other questions or?
Yeah, I mean, if possible, yeah. So again, coming back to the Dakar, I had a more generic question, and then I will combine it with a riding technique tip, if possible. So I know from your previous statements that you said that your experience in Dakar was, let's say, easier than, for example, what what you've been through in Romania. But still, do you consider Dakar as I mean, for somebody that, I don't know, will save a lifetime to, I don't know, at 45 or 50, will try to complete it as a privateer. Do you think it's worth it? I mean, it's
You
worth
want to
it.
go to Dakar, Radu?
Yeah, you know, everybody has a life's dream. I was thinking about this, but they're like different opinions, you know. For example, there was this old, if you remember that documentary with Ewan McGregor and his friend, and they went to the Dakar, to the original one, and yeah, I think their experience was a bit, I don't know, disappointing in terms of the way they were doing it back then. I mean, it's very tough, but it's tough not in the. Of course, it's tough, but it's also tough from the point of view of the organization. I mean, they were ruthless, and they let that guy with a broken, I don't remember what, arm, leg, for one night and one day. So my question is, do you think it's worth it to have this experience, or you can just go like Ramona went in a, I don't know, you go in Morocco and you spend 1 week there and you have for sure nice tours? That's the generic part of the question, and the second, the more technical part of the question is, if I also have an adventure bike, like the one you used to have until 2 months ago. So I have a 790 Adventure R, and I was wondering what's the technique to go very fast with an enduro helmet on and standing up, like you know, because the wind after 120 kilometers an hour wind starts to move your head, you know, you like can't keep up your head because of the tail of the helmet. And I know you have to keep your head lower for the top of the helmet to catch the wind and keep your head down. Is it correct? Is there another technique that we can apply?
So to come back to the Dakar, you know, just to answer, is it worth it, is very, very difficult, because it's such an individual point of view. For me personally, where I'm at financially and in my life, God no, it's not worth it at all. For me to go and put $100,000 on my mortgage to go and do that race, I would have rocks in my head, and no wife when I returned. But, you know, everyone's situation is different, right? For me, as I was doing the race, I couldn't get it out of my head. Like, you know, I love hard enduro. I was thinking, man, the amount of money that I've spent doing this race, I could do every hard enduro on the planet for like 3 years. But the other side of it is, it's the most expensive race in the world, but it's also the most easy race in the world to fundraise for, because everyone knows Dakar, everyone accepts that it's really expensive. So, you know, for me to raise $10,000 to do Romaniacs the first time was almost as difficult as it was to raise $100,000 to do Dakar. Because, you know, it has that huge mystique around it, and it's easy to attract. I should not say easy. It's easier to attract those sponsors into the event. I don't regret doing it for a second. If some crazy billionaire came up to me tomorrow and said, "Here you go, Chris. Here's $100,000. Go for it," I would be there in a heartbeat. It's an amazing experience, but is it worth it? I can't answer that. I've had a couple of friends look into it, and my advice to them is don't do it, because I know their situation. And they're like, no. Like, go spend half that money and go and ride around the world and have the most amazing adventure of a lifetime without any angry French officials shouting at you, without getting run over by, you know, Russian Kamaz racing trucks. Like, yeah, there's a lot of guys in that race that are just losing their minds for it. Like, a good story to back it up. On the start line of the Dakar, they let you go two at a time, and there was I think he was a Mexican guy. Oh, no, sorry, he's from Turkey. A Turkish guy. I was on the start line next to, and I, the old "G'day, mate. Good luck. Hope it goes well for you." And he turns to me and says, "Hey, look, thank you. I need some luck. This is my third time attempting this event, and I've run out of everything to sell. So I've sold my house, I've sold my business, and I had to sell my car to do it this year." I'm like, "You're a freaking idiot. Like, this is just a motorbike race, and you've completely ruined your entire life for a motorbike race." But it does grab people in that way.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
it was exactly the same thing. It was a short video posted by Red Bull on YouTube yesterday with a guy from America that said he only had his mountain bike and he was giving up the budget, everything, rental bike, fees and all, and he said he had nothing left at home, just a mountain bike and
Yeah. I think the difference with that, though, would be like, because he's done so well, like he's just gone all in on this Dakar attempt and he's done so well, there's a pretty good chance he's going to get picked up by a factory team now and change his whole life. So, yeah, he's taken a really big gamble, but there is actually some potential likelihood of a payoff for him. Whereas the guys that are like selling their houses to finish 100th, like, that's absolute insanity in my mind. But again, each to their own. But to me, that just seems crazy. And some of the riding is just crap. Like, they're trails that you wouldn't ride if they were behind your house. But and like, I've had some of the best days of my life riding on that in that event, and some of the days, like, that is the worst day I've ever had on a dirt bike. Like, that sucked. But it's the Dakar. So yeah, mixed feelings around that event, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we should move a little bit faster because the time is flying. I don't know how. With you, it's very easy to see time fly. And I think there are some other riders that are waiting with their questions. Radu, can we move on with other?
Yeah,
other
for
riders?
sure. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank
you. And we move on to Florin. Florin Ionita, are you ready to ask your questions? Florin, are you still here? Okay. Yeah.
Got bored. No.
Yep, here.
Okay.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, hi.
Being a KTM fan, my first question is, what is your favorite KTM model in this moment?
At the moment, it's the 890. I've got my 890 set up so nice at the moment. It's freaking amazing. I absolutely love it. I've got the Pro-Spec suspension in it. I'm spoiled rotten. The thing is just insane. I really, really like that bike.
And now Dragos is killing himself.
Yeah. So we were lucky to, in New Zealand, we were still able to have a KTM Adventure Rally this year, and I had the only 890 outside of the factory at that point. So they got me to do a speech one of the nights of the rally about the 890. And it was a room full of people that 75% of them had just bought a 790. And, people wanted to kill me by the end of it.
Chris, honest answer. Did you ride a Yamaha Tenere 700?
Yeah.
How is it?
It's a good bike for the price. It's a significantly cheaper motorbike with significantly lower performance. It's not a bad bike in any way, and it's good value for money. I mean, you can't treat it the way or ride it in the conditions of ride it the way that you can a 790 or an 890, but you've also got a lot less money to spend. So, yeah.
Dragos just bought the Tenere, so that's why he's trying to convince himself now, since you said something else, that he did a good job. So, Florin, do you have other questions?
Yeah, most of the questions that I have in mind already been spoke, but I'm a rider. I ride the bike since 8 years ago, mostly on the streets. And since last year, I'm becoming to go a little bit more on the off-road. So my question is, it's sure that I need to take some courses and to improve my skills. My question is it good? Because I have a 1290 Adventure. Is it a good idea to start with this bike, or should I start with a small one?
If you really want to go really down the off-road path, definitely some time and some experience on a lighter enduro dual sport bike is time well spent. Basically, because you're going to be way more likely to try stuff. You're going to be way more likely to push your personal limits, but you'll be able to do it a lot safer with much less risk of damaging an expensive bike.
Yeah.
So when people ask this question to me, I normally say, like, just go out and buy some 5, 10, 15-year-old trail bike and just beat it to death and just, figure out how to ride off-road on some piece of junk that you don't care about, rather than beating to death your, beautiful, shiny KTM.
Yeah, because the first time I had the 1050 5 years ago, I think.
Okay.
And I was very confident. I saw movies with you and say, okay, everything seems so easy. And my first mistake was I trying to cross a river. I made it. No problem, no issues. But when I came back, the bike was dropped. I had it, I think, 1,000 kilometers. That's all. And it was my first fall. And so from that moment, I said, okay, it's not just hold my beer, I can do it. So I started to think more serious about to take it to some courses and to improve my skills, because it's an expensive toy.
Yeah, I think a good way to think about it, like, it's pretty hard to do €1,000 of damage to a €2,000 bike.
Oh, but 1,000 kilometers was my first.
Right. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, if you buy some old cheap bike, you can just, I wonder how this hill works. Smash, bash. Oh, it doesn't work. Who cares? Carry on. But, we see a lot of guys, like, they've gone out and bought themselves, a beautiful new GS or a beautiful new KTM, and they're just really scared to try anything. And that just slows down the whole learning process so much, because you don't want to beat to death this beautiful, the thing you've saved for ages to buy. Yeah, and it's totally fair enough.
Yeah, because when you're starting to see that it's not very simple to ride this bike in an off-road, then becomes the fear in your mind. So this will block everything. So I think I need to improve my skills, probably with a, I don't know, less expensive bike. And after that, should I try this one? Because it's a killing machine bike. I like it so much. It's
they're amazing.
But I'm sure I'm not using it the proper way. So in this moment, just use it on the street is not all the thing that I want to do with the bike.
Yeah, and just think of the bike that you get. Just think of it like a gym membership or a training tool. Like, I'm just going to use this thing for 6 months, use it for what I need it to do, and then off we go. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
Happy times.
Yeah. So these were my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Florin. Andrei, are you here, Andrei? Andrei, with a nice view. You have this nice view, Andrei. Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, it's a nice view, winter time here. I will try to be very short, because the time flies, as Maria said. I had 3 questions, but I think I will only ask 2 of them, because the third will go from the one of it. Everything is related. I'm a new rider. I got my license a year ago. So my question is, do you ever afraid? And if you are afraid, how do you train your? How do you practice the panic?
Of course, I'm afraid. It doesn't happen so often these days, but it does still happen for sure. And I think the thing is trying to train your reflex reactions in that situation. And the biggest thing I think you could focus on, the most beneficial in those periods of fear, is just vision. If everything else in your brain just scrambles, just focus purely on where you're looking and your vision down the road, down the trail, that sort of thing. So when I'm doing my rider training these days, luckily we've got some support from Cardo. And so we run Cardo communication systems in the helmets. And beginner riders, you'll see them start to drift wide in the corner, and they're starting to go off the side of the road, and I just scream to them in their ear, eyes, eyes, eyes. They turn their eyes, they look where they want to go, and they go around the corner. The bike starts to get out of shape down a muddy, in a rough trail. Eyes, eyes, eyes. Your eyes come up, you look down the trail, the bike straightens out, it goes straight. Your vision of where you're looking down the trail, it's really easy to say, yeah, just look where you want to go. But it's quite difficult to always, really focus that that target fixation where it needs to be. And I think if there's one thing as a beginner that you'd really want to try and focus on, it's really using that vision to help you out. It's something you should never stop focusing on. Excuse the pun.
Okay, thank you. And the second one is talking about the weightless riding technique. Do you keep the balance on the bigger bikes with your lower part of the body or with the upper part of the body?
It's a bit of everything. So you're using with a correct standing position, you should have a lot of mobility in your hips. So if you're standing too upright, if you have your hips underneath you, it really locks out your hips. So when you rotate your hips out more, you can mobilize your hips more, use your hips as quite a big counterweight. But also there's a lot of movement through your shoulders and through your head as well to keep and maintain that balance. So it's especially when the terrain gets really difficult, when it gets really tough, it's not that you're just using your head. It's not that you're just using your foot pegs. It's that you're really using your whole body to work with the bike, especially with the big bikes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much.
A bit of everything.
Thank you, Andrei. Mihai Pandele, are you here? You can unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
Okay, hi, Chris.
Hello.
Hello. I don't have let's say, technical questions. One of my questions was also the one that Andrei put you regarding how you manage the fear, but I have also few more questions regarding the techniques itself.
Sure.
What type of approach you recommend for a beginner who wants to start learning off-road?
What's first starting point? I mean, obviously the obvious one is get some good advice.
General things. I'm not meaning. Okay.
Then we've come back to it a few times already, but honestly, the number one thing that I start every single riding school with, it doesn't matter whether it's a hard enduro school, an adventure school, an enduro school, whatever it is, the number one thing we always start off with is that correct standing position, because everything else builds off that. If you're not standing on your bike correctly to start off with, problems just increase from there. So that's where I guess that's where I honestly focus my attention when I have a real beginner rider. Basic control stuff, like just getting absolute mastery of your basic control. So really good clutch control, really good brake control, smooth throttle control, and just a good way to describe it. Like if you need this much talent to ride down the trail in terms of clutch control, throttle control, brake control, and you train to here, you've got all this to spare. That's really good. So you never want to be challenged in terms of those key fundamentals, so that you, when you're riding off road, you can focus on the terrain, on your line, all the other factors involved, rather than being at the mercy of your clutch control, your balance, your throttle control. So just being really, really militant and drilling those basic skills and getting them up as high as you can. That's where trials really pays off.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And
No
one more questions. For you, how much time it took for you to start believing in yourself in off-road riding? Did you have a native talent for that, or it was just hard work?
Hello. I was very fortunate that I grew up in a motorcycle riding family. I don't really remember learning how to ride a motorbike. It's just kind of always been around bikes. So.
Okay. So you grow up with bikes.
Yeah, I never really had to go through that, to be honest. So I don't have too much to answer there. It's not something I've personally experienced. I kind of just, progress over many years. I think one time I really did get my confidence knocked in a big way was when I had a huge crash whilst I was living in South Africa and got quite injured. And that took me quite a long time to build that confidence up again. And it was just, a long, slow process. But what really helped was, for me anyway, was making sure that I really celebrated every success. So, if I got up a hill that I used to be able to get up that was a bit hard work for, well done me. Just because it's really easy to get into into a negative frame of mind. We're like, oh God, this was scary. Oh God, that was scary. Oh God, this hurts. And you kind of start beating yourself up for stuff that you're doing wrong. So you got to balance that out with celebrating the stuff that you get right. And that's something that I always used to try and do in racing as well, especially in events like Red Bull Romaniacs, because you're on your bike by yourself with no one to talk to for 8 hours a day for 4 days.
Wow.
But the only person you can talk to is yourself. So if that person's being grumpy and being a dickhead, it's really easy to get into a bad frame of mind. So for me, I could only talk to myself. So I make sure I was in a good mood. Like, yeah, well done. You freaking nailed that. And, I got a corner really good. I'm like, yeah, suck on that, Graham Jarvis. No way you went around that corner that well. And just trying to,
To speak, okay.
be a good friend to yourself as you're trying to build your confidence.
You became one, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. These are my questions.
Attitude. It's all about attitude, right?
Yeah. And you're in charge of that. So make sure it's working for you.
Sorin Circo, you're next. I don't know if Sorin is here. Yeah?
Thanks.
Okay, good.
Hi, ladies. Hi, Chris. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Glad to be able to attend to this meeting. Glad to hear you, Chris. Honestly, not only for the motorbike reason, but also for your Australian kind like accent. One of my favorite movies was Crocodile Dundee. So
Yeah,
I
you're
really
only
enjoy hearing your accent. So, if I'm not wrong, you have a pretty long period spent as a trainer. In this long period, which were the most frequent errors you seen to beginners? Which were the most frequent unknowns that you noticed they have?
Again, I'm sorry to answer the same question, a similar question the same way. The most common thing I come across is that standing position stuff. People just not standing off-road in the motorcycle off-road correct position, and it just creates so many issues as we go through. A real common issue we get with guys, especially with venture riders coming from more street riding and experimenting into off-road riding, is a lack of control and a lack of feel for the rear brake. Obviously with street riding, we're not using very much rear brake. It's all about the front. Whereas off-road riding, we need really good, fine control for that rear brake. So that's something we put a lot of time and effort into at the riding schools to try and skill the guys up with.
Standing position and control of rear brake.
Yeah.
Okay. And as you are both a very good off-road driver and also KTM image representative, the next question is about what do you think KTM 790 is qualified to be bought instead of, let's say, Yamaha Tenere 700 or Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro?
Yeah.
Why should I buy KTM and not a Triumph Tiger? For Tenere 700, you already answered. Good value for the price. That means it's not good, but it's cheap. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm talking not in the perspective of using an, let's say, adventure bike, but mostly something like an adventure touring bike.
Okay. I mean, to be honest, the Triumph's a good bike. Like it's a really good motorbike. It's hard to say bad things about it in any way, and I won't. Personally, the biggest thing it comes down to is suspension. So what makes this the 790 stand out from every other adventure bike ever made, including the rest of the KTM range as well, is the suspension is just on a whole nother level. So the amount of reserves that suspension has is huge. So like if you go back to like the early days, like the 1190s, that engine was so fast, but the suspension couldn't keep up with the bike. The 790, the suspension is almost ahead of the bike. So you have to be pushing that bike really, really fast, really hard to reach the limits of the stock suspension. So, for example, when I raced the Hellas Rally 2 years ago, when the 790 was really new, and I raced that whole event and finished, I think, 4th overall. on completely stock suspension. I wouldn't even consider entering that event on any other adventure bike suspension. So I think if there's one point of difference, it's the suspension.
Okay. I was thinking about lower center of gravity, but it seems it's about suspension, not about lower center of gravity.
Yeah, and to be honest, the lower center of gravity, all that sort of stuff, that all plays into the overall handling of the bike, and is a factor in the way that it behaves with the suspension. So you're not wrong there either. But you could have a bike with really nice low center of gravity, which would be lovely. But if the suspension's crap, it's still crap suspension. And they definitely work together. But that's the standout thing with that 790.
Thanks, Chris.
No problem.
Thank you, Sorin. So we have two more riders. Mario Dumitru.
Hi, thank you.
Okay.
I have two questions. I don't have a KTM, so I cannot switch off my ABS. And
Okay.
I have a fear when I'm on descent, on downhill, and I cannot brake properly. How do you think?
You're right to be scared. Yeah,
Sorry?
it's a scary situation. What bike are you riding?
V-Strom 1000.
Yeah, you can't even pull the fuse. Can you pull a fuse on those?
I think I didn't try it, but yeah.
That's what I'd try.
Okay. So this
Yeah.
is the
So the early like the 990s, the 950s, they were really hard to turn the ABS off. So we used to pull the fuse out and just keep it in the glove box. And when you get to the end of the off-road, put the fuse back in again.
Mm-hmm.
But make sure you try that somewhere safe, because it might do all sorts of other crazy shit as well.
Yeah, I will try. And the second one, how should we do in the mud when the mud is deep, like 15, 20 centimeters, and it's a long distance, like 10 meters or 15 meters?
It's hard work on an adventure bike. Tire pressure makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know you're going into some muddy terrain, you definitely want to be reducing your tire pressures to basically as low as you think you can get away with comfortably. That will make a huge change. The big thing you want to do is, as much as possible, try and keep your ground speed and your wheel speed matched as much as you can. So your bike's going to go sideways and slip and move when your ground speed and your wheel speed is mismatched. So that, that's how ABS and how traction control work, right? So if you're riding along the trail and you see a big long section of mud, maybe sort of 10 meters long, that sort of thing, if you can hold a bit of momentum into that and reduce your power input as you go through it, rather than just winding the power on, the bike's less likely to slide out and roll around. So if these sections are only short, you can sometimes even just pull a clutch in and just kind of just roll through them a bit and let the bike go through rather than spinning. So all your inputs need to be really smooth and gentle. So no stabby brakes, no big acceleration, just trying to keep that wheel speed and that ground speed as matched and as even as possible. Tire choice makes a huge difference. So where I live, we get a lot of mud, sort of 8 months of the year, and to go any sort of exploring, any sort of adventure riding around here, I have to run really aggressive, full off-road focused tires. Otherwise, I just can't get where I want to go. And that means that I then have to compromise and slow right down on the street and take it really easy. So, yeah, unfortunately, there's no one tire that works everywhere. But if you know you're going to have experiencing a lot of mud, so choosing the right tires makes a like night and day difference.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Mario. The last one on the list is Florin Neacșu. Florin.
Hello, can you hear me?
You look like you are in a pub, like putting music,
No, I'm at home. I'm just at home. So, hello and thank you for your time. I will just shoot through the questions that haven't been asked yet. So, Chris, what would you say the best training for learning bike control as a beginner would be? Motocross, enduro, maybe even trials. What would be your advice for somebody who wants to progress in learning bike control?
Playing trials bikes, but on an enduro bike.
Okay. So
yeah.
Motocross,
not so much. No,
not so much.
Especially for the average age demographic that's getting into adventure bikes, motocross is going to be a tough sport to pick up at that stage of life. It's going to hurt. Going full, and same thing, going full trials bike is, trials bikes are great for building skills, but they're very, very different to riding an adventure bike. So I think the best way to do it is like setting up more sort of trialsy sort of obstacles, trial sort of sections, that sort of stuff.
So technical enduro riding.
But but without like, having to go and smash great big hill climbs and that sort of stuff, but just like, like full lock turns, clutch control, that sort of stuff, but on an enduro bike rather than a trials bike.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Now the endless dispute for dirt bikes: 2-stroke versus 4-stroke for beginner riders. Nope.
The modern 2-strokes and modern 4-strokes are both so damn good now. It really doesn't make any difference. In my mind, in any big way. They're both like, the 4-strokes are getting way more 2-strokey. The 2-strokes are getting way more like a 4-stroke. They're kind of meeting in the middle. You can probably make a case either way, but I don't think it makes a huge difference.
Okay.
It's still clutch control, throttle control, balance, brakes, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Then my last one. In recent years, we've seen that bike manufacturers have really started to listen to the consumer market and consumer needs. Let's say we see the middle adventure bike booming at the moment. Let's say my question would be, how is KTM inclined to listening to their customers, and what's the balance between customer feedback and pro riders like yourself, like Toby, I don't know, Sam, in developing a bike like the 790, for example, or 890, where I know your inputs and your colleagues' inputs have been crucial?
There's a lot that goes on. That they do genuinely do quite a lot of market research. I mean, why wouldn't you? Like, you're putting all this money into selling and to try to develop a bike. You might as well ask the people that are trying to buy it. So they have guys that go along to Touratech events, to all these different the KTM rallies, to talk to the KTM faithful, but also they go along to the GS rallies and all that sort of stuff, and they talk to the riders. They don't get on the forums very much because everybody gets a bit shouty, but just actually going to talk to people, there's a lot of that goes on. Obviously, they take a lot of feedback from pro riders as well. It's but trying to strike that balance between what works for a pro rider and what works for Joe Public as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because
we're
not all able to do what you guys are doing, for sure.
No, but it's striking that balance in like what we we know that guys don't want to jump and wheelie and that sort of stuff. Not everyone wants to do that, but a pro rider knows when a bike handles right, and quite often he goes, why don't you get more average guys to test the bikes? Because we can go from one end of the shop to the other, and the average guy can't tell us what happened. Whereas the pro guy will tell you, exactly what's going on. So it's trying to find all that balance the whole time. But there is a lot of listening that goes on. And when we did the launch for the KTM 790, kind of the tagline, the headline for the launch was "You talked, we listened." And that's how the 790 was born, was from listening to people. And we were joking about the scenes. It wasn't you talking, so you guys screamed at us and we said, okay.
Exactly. In the end, your jump in Morocco sold a lot of 790s, so not average Joe's jump. So thank you.
So we are waiting for you, Florina, at the Touratech Rally event.
Well, I'll be there, but I have a 1290 Adventure S, just like Florin. It's actually his old bike, so we'll need to see about that. We need to find some bikes to attend to the rally.
Yeah.
Maria, can I ask one short question?
Yes, please.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
So we are not as blessed as you are to have year-round great weather for riding. So now when we are inside and we cannot ride the bikes, what would you recommend as fitness regime? Because this is a very demanding sport, enduro and rallying. What would you say are the activities, the fitness activities that you would recommend to do to stay in shape for this, to prepare at least?
Yeah, that's quite the smart ass way to answer is what are you doing now?
Well, when I first started doing, before I started doing enduro, I was just the average Joe running, and I thought I was semi-fit. And I set my ass on an enduro bike, and I realized I'm not, because after 1 hour, hands, quads, everything was hurting. So now just doing like CrossFit and just regular, not extraordinary, but you know.
Yeah, because it's hard to answer that question without sort of knowing where you're at now. Because a lot of guys are like, what's the best training for riding? I'm like, well, what are you doing now? Nothing. So the best training would be to do something, anything. Walking your dog would be a good start. But to answer the question and in reflection to what you're talking about, I think a real important thing to focus on is stability and mobility. So for riding bikes, we don't need to be super strong. Like you look at the top guys; they're not powerlifters. It's about range of movement, functional movement, just being able to control your body and use your body effectively. And especially as we get older, that starts to diminish. So it's something that I'm really trying to focus on myself. In terms of keeping that cardio going, that strength, that sort of stuff, rowing machine is really, really good. I did most of my Romaniacs cardio training because we have to train in our winter for Romaniacs. A lot of that was done on rowing machines. You lose the will to live on them. They're not exciting, but really good and very time efficient too. So a good interval session, half an hour on a rowing machine can really get good results.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool.
I think that we overpassed the time with 20 minutes now. Sorry about that, Chris. It's so easy to make the time fly with you. I think that we are skipping the other questions part because most of the questions are already asked, and I think that seeing your videos, it's also very helpful and could answer other questions as well. The link is in the chat version. I think you mentioned something about Monica giving some vouchers or discounts code.
Getting it here. Here you go.
Yeah.
I can read it out. And I can send it in a message, can't I?
Yeah. Please, you can put it in chat. Your notes already did it in chat, so.
There we go.
Yeah.
No, 25. That's not quite right.
Yeah, he only wants the discount for himself, so.
There you go.
SNTS 25. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chris. Is there something that you could, I don't know, tell or?
I hope that we can get to Romania. I hope we can get there soon. We missed the place. Missed the Romanian soup. I've never had soup like Romanian soup in my life. What else? No, I think that's it really. Mulțumesc.
Oh, very nice.
Don't be impressed. I've been to Romania 11 times. That's all I know.
I think you are doing great, Chris, and thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much. We love you. You inspire us. So continue with your work. You are amazing, and for sure we will be looking forward to have you here in Europe, if not in Romania. I don't know. We'll keep in touch anyway, and good luck with your future project. Thank you guys for joining Saturday. We had a morning coffee with Chris. Follow us on Touratech for more events, and hope to see you all again soon. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks to you, Maria.
Maria, să-mi trimiți video, nu uita.
Okay, I will.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.